Voices from the Mausoleum is brought to you by the You Run Podcast Network and yourunpodcast.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum. Welcome to episode Found Footage Fridays.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. We made it. I feel like I say that a lot, but sometimes it feels like it's never going to come.
It's a long haul to Friday. I know.
Yeah, and then it's Monday within 5 minutes.
3-day weekends.
How about we just flip it? We just work 2 days and we're off for 5. Do you know how much happier we'd be? We'd be poor, but we'd be happier.
Fill that time with found footage movies.
There you go. That's what I need. More time for movies. Yeah, so we're back with an episode of Found Footage Fridays. This one is, it's not new, but it is newer. It came out in 2021. And that's the 2021 found footage movie, The Medium. If you're not familiar, it is a horrifying story of a shaman's inheritance in the Isan region of Thailand. What could be possessing a family member might not be the goddess they make it out to be. That's so vague. That's pretty good, though. I like when they're vague. It's just gives you like just enough to be like, huh, maybe.
It's a good setup.
Yeah.
I know you're not super thrilled on this one.
I want to be so badly because I think there are things in this that are really good.
Yeah.
But I think, first of all, will sound like Radar, it's too damn long. There's too much stuff in it. It takes too long to get to the point, and there's a lot of just stuff. I don't know, like I think they could have cut so much out of this. Like the runtime is 2 hours and 10 minutes.
For a found footage movie.
That's 45 minutes almost over the average for most found footage movies. It's almost double the length. And it's too damn long.
And I think it doesn't necessarily have the story to justify it either.
It doesn't. No, I 100% agree with that. I think strength-wise, I think the acting is fine. No problems there. Thought the acting was believable. The shaman, as they said, that we get used to, I think she did a very compelling job of her role and kind of the tension between her and the family members and some of the stuff that's going on. I think the person who plays the possessed did a really great job. I think the set pieces look amazing. The camera work in this is really, really, really well done, especially in some very spooky shots specifically. But for what this story was, it was oddly too slow and too over the top. I don't know. It's a very weird. I have lots of weird opinions on this one.
Yeah, I think this was a first watch for me, and I think I messaged you maybe right after.
Yeah.
I watched it. I'm very like 50-50 on it because I think it's a fantastic setup. I think it's very interesting. Anytime we sort of get to learn about different cultures and horror, I'm all
here for it.
Love it.
Yeah, same.
This idea of shamans and sort of willingly being possessed by this deity, it's very fascinating. And I think Min, is that her character? Is that the main shaman's name?
Mink.
So
Nim is the sister.
Well, I thought Mink was the niece.
Nim is the niece. Yeah. Okay.
But I think the shaman's a fantastic character. And the family frustrated me in this movie so much. So many.
What is it he says in Constantine? They did what all parents did. They made it worse.
And I'm like, it just didn't feel, a lot of the decisions, especially in like the later portion of the movie, did not make sense. And I know, I think you have to suspend disbelief in a lot of movies in general. I mean, movies are movies,
especially possession movies. I feel,
but a lot of the decisions characters made, because it's so long, it's like big scary thing happens. We're just gonna sort of sit on that for a little bit until the next big scary thing happens. Meanwhile, we're like, you're all in danger. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, there's some pacing and some reality issues with this, I think.
You're all just sort of just chilling, not really doing much and waiting around. I don't know. It was wild,
Yeah.
but it had some pretty good scares in it for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
I think in the beginning the relationships were good, interesting.
Yeah, the dynamic, yeah.
The dynamics until the stupid decisions started happening.
And then it was
And
just
then it
like,
changes gears. I know we're not really in the spoiler section yet, but there's like a point in it
mhm,
where I'll say there's a character death that really frustrated me in this movie. Um, and it just did not make sense. Like I felt like it was just sort of done for the sake of being shocking and not for story purposes.
mhm. Yeah. I'm fairly confident I know what character you're talking about. Yeah, I think, um yeah, it's unfortunate because I do think the setup for it, like we said, is pretty good, and I do think there are some specific shots of this of the girl in particular, that's possessed that I think are legitimately, like, very scary. Like,
Mhm.
there's a couple scenes in this where I was kind of like, ugh, like, I didn't want to keep looking, but obviously, like,
Yeah.
I'm like, that's very scary. Like, I don't like that at all. But then it's like, it would go to something dumb after that. So then you would be like, well, all that magic is gone now because it moved on to something, like kind of almost like too quick, I think, or
Mhm.
or the next thing just was like stuff that like didn't really need to be in there, or like you said, it's something that happened where you're just like, okay, like I don't know. So it was I remembered originally, this was my second watch. I watched it when it first came out. And I remembered not liking it very much. But people talk very highly of this one. This is one
Mhm.
that when people post about it, they're like, they loved it, which that's part of the course. Angel never likes what everybody else likes, I guess. I don't know. Um, and so it's very interesting because my bar for Asian found footage is really high, like
Mhm.
really high. Ganjiam, Noroi, there's a couple, there's one more in particular, I'm drawing a total blank on the name, that the Moroi tapes
Mhm.
that are just like so good. And then there's whatever this is, it's like somehow very mediocre.
Well, they also change formats,
Yes.
and I think that also frustrated me because, like, it's a mockumentary,
It's supposed to be mockumentary,
and then
yes.
all of a sudden it's like, we're just gonna be Paranormal Activity for some reason.
Which would have been fine because I think those are some of the best shots in the film.
Right.
But I think that you're right though, because when we as viewers watch a mockumentary, we're in a specific frame of mind.
Mhm.
Like we're like, okay, we're with you, right? We got it. We know what's going on. And then you switch to that and you're like, I mean, okay, I guess. Like, yeah,
When
that's
you broke
spooky, but
Yeah, like, when you
it's
break structure,
jarring.
it's weird.
Yeah, the pacing and the structure in this are very strange. It's a very unique formula. It doesn't keep on the same path that a lot of found footage movies I feel like do, where it's kind of a slower, it's first of all, it's way too long to be a found footage movie. But secondly, a lot of found footage movies, they start out slow and then they pick up and then it's just batshit crazy until the end.
Mhm.
And this just had batshit moments, like, in the middle of all these other, like, really slow moments, and it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, okay, I guess, but not what I would have
Yeah,
done.
but I think that's sort of what makes a lot of the character decisions so frustrating because you
Yeah.
get these batshit moments and you're like, "Well, how do we reel it back in from that?" And, like, you would assume these wild moments would change the trajectory of the story, but it just sort of felt like we're just telling this story, and a lot of this stuff's not gonna really
Yeah,
impact.
and, like, exactly like what you were saying a second ago, it's like, y'all know that you're in danger, and, like, you still just exist in the space like, "It'll be fine."
Yeah. Yeah, no
There's,
one
like
seems concerned.
Incantation, that's the other one I was trying to think of. Oh, that one's so good.
Mhm. I just
Anyway,
wanted to watch that one. I know.
I think you'll like it. That one's really good. But that's the thing is like, it's not like, to be fair, on average, found footage is not great. Like there's so many bad ones compared to how many good ones there are. But I think that this again, like, first of all, it's found footage, which is my jam. But also I love possession movies. And we talked about this recently on the coffee cup because we were talking about the non-Vespa Exorcist movie with Russell Crowe. And we were
Mhm.
talking about these like dime a dozen. And I will say this on the positive, I don't think this is a dime a dozen. That doesn't make any sense. Dime a dozen possession stories. I do think the concept is very unique. And to your point, you get to learn a lot about different lore and the way these people, and there's even multiple practices of the shaman. I don't want to call it a belief, but practice. Like there's
Mhm.
different, and I loved all of that. But the execution for this, it should have been shorter and they should have just stuck to one style of filming because
Yeah.
it was just too jarring for me. It just made it hard
Yeah.
for me to,
I almost thought like an anthology within this story could have probably helped
yeah.
break it up. Like if you did like a
Oh,
mockumentary
yeah.
style,
Yeah.
and then for some reason the mockumentary had to stop, and then you're like, oh, here's like later recovered footage.
That would work. Yeah.
You
That
know what I
could
mean?
work.
Like just sort of, I think it just some restructuring. I feel like you could have accomplished what you were trying to do, but just in a different way where it didn't feel like it interrupted its own flow.
It did. And and then the parts with the people were really repetitive in general. It was like, oh God, what are we gonna do? Something bad happens. We're still hanging out. Oh God, what are we gonna do? It's like, leave. I don't know, something other than what you're doing. It don't make no sense.
There's a lot of the same arguments over
It
and over.
is. And it's like, and it just, all it did was add to the length of the film. Like, just cut that shit out. We don't
Right.
need it. All of that, most of this film could have all happened in one night. It didn't need to be broken up into multiple nights. It could have all happened in one night.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It
So,
was like,
and it
well, I
would have
just wonder
cut
they
the
sort of
movie
had
in
to
half.
wait 4 nights for the exorcism, and, like, that was just so that we can get a Paranormal Activity footage.
Yeah, which again is some of the best shot stuff in the whole film, but it feels out of place. Like
Mhm.
you almost feel like you're experiencing a different movie and then it's back to the other one, you know?
It's also coming at, like, an hour and a half into the movie.
It took so long to get to that
You know
point.
what I
I'm
mean?
like,
So it's like you're already sort of, like, feeling like you should be at a natural progression to the final act for a found footage movie, and now you're like, "Alright, here's this next piece of it," that's much longer. But I wonder how much of it is just, like, difference in, um, storytelling structure, also
mhm.
from, like, just other cultures. Like, I just know, like, um, the classic 3-act structure isn't the guarantee in all storytelling. Uh,
No, that's true. Yeah.
you know what I mean? There's sort of, like, a different trajectory that a lot of stories take.
Yeah.
Uh, so, I mean, I'm wondering if maybe there's just sort of a different mold that I'm like, maybe we're just not used to.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
This is a lot. What do you rate this?
It's a 5.5 for me, which is I think the lowest score I've given since I joined, and I feel bad giving it because there's stuff that I love, but
Yeah. Yeah, I mean there's stuff I love too, but the other stuff really does bring it down. I'm probably going to give it the same thing.
mhm,
Um the stuff that's good was good, but all the in between stuff I think really just waters down the experience, and you spend so much time trying to get back into the feeling of scared and then taken right back out of it. It's just it's not very good at the pacing of the atmosphere, the pacing of the
mhm,
scares. There's a couple jump scares, but primarily they are relying on visual, like atmospheric
mhm.
style, for the scary part. It's not a jump scare fest, but it's still, yeah, it's like the other stuff just brings it down so much for me because I just by the end of it, I'm not thinking how much I enjoyed it. I'm thinking about what a disappointment it was because the parts that I liked, I loved, but there were
Mhm.
so many more that I didn't feel that way about. So
Yeah, I think right. This was needed a less is more approach. I think it became a
yes.
little bit too self-indulgent. It needed some trimming for sure. So I think that's just I think our agreed consensus here.
Yeah. No, totally agree. Yeah.
Want to dive into spoilers?
Yeah, let's do it.
Right. Throwing up more spoilers banner.
So I really did not like the sex stuff. I felt like that made almost no sense. Like, I know it's supposed to be like possessed, making her do these things, but like
Hmm.
all the stuff with like her work and then her like having these random men like bang her over the desk. And like, I was like, and this is doing what for the story? Like, I was just like that whole stuff with work. I think all of that, literally all of that could have been completely left out.
She could
Even
have gotten fired from work for a disagreement or just erratic behavior,
or
but
for
they don't.
not showing up, that
Yeah,
would have
not
been
showing
just
up.
as viable, right?
I think it just added to this already bloated runtime, right? Because we're talking about there's so much emphasis on the work related stuff.
And
Um,
it doesn't matter.
ultimately it doesn't matter, right?
I mean, it's
'Cause
like
yeah.
you're like, "Oh," like like I think that there are ways to, because demonic possession is essentially a form of made a lot of noise, sorry. Is a very big could potentially be a metaphor for, SA or the other word that YouTube doesn't like. And so, and I get that. But like this, like the making her dad, I think it was her dad, like touch her and like, I don't know, like it just felt so inconsistent with the rest of the stuff that was going on that it
Mhm.
just didn't, I don't know, it just felt every element of this just felt so out of place. Because honestly, it's not even just that, because you already know how I feel about that stuff anyway. But if it had made sense, I wouldn't be so bothered by it. But to me, it didn't fit. And the office scenes didn't fit. Um, I the whole like still leaving the baby around, like knowing I'm like this kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about the decisions. And I don't know, there was just so much about it that just didn't fit. But those scenes in particular, you literally could remove them and they don't change anything about the film at all.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I think so. Definitely the work stuff for sure, but I think yeah, the baby thing that was yeah, going
Yeah.
back to like stupid decisions of like, so
Yes.
they're gonna do this, Nim and the other folks. I think the church now, right? Because
Yeah.
the church was getting involved. They're gonna do this ritual, this exorcism, but they need like 4 days or something to prepare, right? So that's sort of we set up this paranormal activity thing, but we already know she's off the walls dangerous,
We do already know that.
right? They all know this. But there's a
Yes.
baby in a crib out in the living room while she's in her room right there. They're all just like, we're okay.
I know. Like nothing bad's gonna happen.
Yeah. Meanwhile, she's like getting out every night.
Ugh.
I,
I
she
will tell
cooks
you
the
though,
dog.
the dog thing, oh God. Yeah, the scenes where she's, like, crawling around, I will tell you, those scenes did scare me, like,
It was creepy.
they're very creepy, very intense for me. There's, like, one in particular where you don't see her at first, and then she, like, comes out, but it's, like, really close. That
Yeah.
really, like, ugh, that freaked me out,
Yeah.
um but then again, same thing as before, then it's the next day, and we're back to, BS
Just like
about
reset.
whatever. Yeah.
And like, I feel like if you took that section of the movie
Yeah,
and made it happen earlier or peppered it in throughout and
at
sort of make
intervals.
it and sort of like add to the growing tension,
Mhm.
I think it would have helped.
Yeah.
Rather than it sort of being just this moment where they're waiting for the exorcism and now it's just danger, danger, danger. It just was just so clumped
Mm,
together.
yeah, and I think the other thing story element wise that might would have been better is that they had made it so that maybe we didn't know for sure if she was that dangerous
Right.
until we got that footage, right? So like we could say, the shaman, because of the dynamic between the shaman and the sister, her sister, the girl's mom,
Hmm.
before, like we get their dynamic. So we already know like they are not on the same page, right? So like if the shaman comes in and she's like, no, like something's up, it would make sense for the mom to be like, you don't know what you're talking about. She's fine, right? And then to not know for sure yet. But they show us so much of what she's already doing that at the
Hmm.
time that they're just like, like sleeping with their doors unlocked and like doing like it's no big deal. It's like it doesn't make any sense. Those scenes, to your point, if they had been done earlier, you could have done it like the family didn't know until then how bad things were. And I think that's fine. Like that would have worked much better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other, like, so the turning point that I was saying was Nim's death. So the shaman's death.
Yeah.
Um, it seems just so weird to me because it's like, so she's missing. So the documentary crew didn't go looking for her. The documentary crew that's been following her for days didn't be like, let's go check in, get a testimonial. What's she up to? She was
No.
just laying face down in her bed, dead. To the point where I think she was smelling already.
Yeah.
No one thought to check in?
No.
That's wild to me.
And I also think like I don't have a problem when stories kill off like a main character, but this one did not feel logical to me. Like
Mm-mm.
because to me, and I don't know, maybe it's just because I was expecting something different and they went a different route. Maybe my brain just didn't calculate that. But I was sitting here thinking, I'm like, I just assumed it was going to be her saving her, or at least trying
Mhm.
to. Now, I don't mind the ending. The ending is not super happy, super happy. It's very bleak, like not so great, right? And I'm fine with that. But I expected more because they built up the shaman to be this like,
Yeah.
and she didn't get to do anything except argue with her sister. You know, it's like,
Yeah. And we don't get any true resolution to, like,
no.
the drama, because the drama was
No.
really what made, I think, a lot of it interesting, was that, the sister was supposed to be the shaman, did everything in her power to sort of deflect the
Oh,
passing of the
yeah.
torch and, like, made her sister, and then the sister realizes she doesn't even know if she's been chosen. She's just sort of took up the mantle anyway because her sister was like, "I'm not doing it." Right? So Nim took it up. Um, so it was just such an interesting, ping pong here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you sort of just flatline it, and there's no resolution. Literally, you
Literally.
flatline it,
Literally.
and you deflated your own story.
Yeah. And it's fine. Like, okay, so like I said, totally fine to kill people, totally fine to have like a super sad, open ended, bleak ending. I'm good with all of that. But when you make it feel like the journey was a waste of time, that's when I don't like it. It's like, I played through like the ironically, the Medium. It's a video game. And you spend the whole time invested in this character, 10 hours of gameplay as a character. And it's the decisions that they make for her at the end, you're just like, I just wasted 10 hours of my life. So they spent this whole time building up this family dynamic, these problems, this history, these arguments with this family, for it to literally not matter. And I just don't understand that. It literally made no difference. They really could have been total strangers and it would have been the same movie. Like you could have just made them not like each other because of another reason, or I don't know. It just, why have the story and the history there if it ends up not making a difference overall? That bugged me.
Yeah. And then, like, your documentary crew are sort of the final survivors, but we knew nothing about them to begin with.
That's true.
And all of a sudden we're supposed to care about. There's such like a, because that's the thing, right? It's such a weird shift of perspectives throughout the movie, right? So
It's
it's like
too many. It's too
too
many
many.
perspectives.
You go, yeah,
Too many plot points, too many people involved, too many, pieces of the story that go off into branch into other things. And it's like it's like you said, less would have been more, and that
mm,
includes the story elements and the like. Honestly, I think this probably would have done better if it wasn't mockumentary. Like
maybe.
you really could have just had, maybe the shaman just records everything anyway for her own protection. And she's worried about her niece because she went to a something and saw that she was acting fucking crazy. And so she goes home and records a video diary of the experience. And then she encourages her sister, and her sister finally puts up cameras. Like, I think there was a better way to do this than
Yeah,
this weird, like, I can't stand, I'm telling you, when it's because found footage is notorious for this. It's like the only one that can do that, because everything else is filmed in, regular third person perspective or whatever. So but where they switch perspectives is too
mhm,
much. Like it's like, and I don't mean like if there's four people and all four people have a camera, sure, you're going to get different perspectives. But like Incantation, as much as I liked it, did this thing where it would go from being hand cam to like a random camera, and you're like, who the fuck is filming this right now? Everybody that's there is in
Yeah.
front of the camera. Like, stop doing that. And it's jarring as a viewer because it takes you out of it. Because then you're like, what is going on with this? And it was the same thing with this when it switches gears to the night vision cameras all over their house. I was like, I don't think I'm gonna like this movie. It just got too chaotic for me and not in a fun way.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't want to just harp on the bad, but the thing is like the good. I mean, there was good, right?
Yeah.
It's just yeah. There's a lot of fans will do re-edits of movies. I feel like keep all the footage the same. I'm curious if people can go on and make a different cut and see if you could improve the movie.
Take out the as they say, the fat.
Yeah.
Trim it down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, re-edit.
Yeah. And it's always frustrating when there's really strong elements and then they don't come together in the end,
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of that.
Yeah, the editing room just needed another pass. I don't know how many editors they had, but sometimes when it's just one person, I don't know if this is the case here, but when it's just like one set of eyes or two set of eyes, they don't catch everything. You need someone else to give it another pass.
I will tell you this. The other thing is this had 3 writers. And the director was none of the 3 writers. And I just feel like maybe
a little connectivity. Yeah.
I think that 3 people are probably going to have all very different ideas for the most part. And it can be really hard to put 3 different types of styles into a cohesive story. So maybe that wasn't the best move. But
a lot, but
we weren't part of the process. We weren't invited. So I don't know. But I think, yeah, it's like I said, it's crazy because I feel like when people talk about this, they're like, "Oh my God, I love it." And I think what it does do good, it does very well. Like I said,
mm-hmm.
I think those night shots are really good. I think the acting is compelling. The ending I really liked when there's like all those people like crawling forward. I thought that was really like really creepy. There's a lot of genuinely like ooh kind of moments in this, but like I said, you just get taken out of it because then we're back to this whatever the other stuff is, right? The drama.
I did like the concept of the possession. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, it was sort of it was obviously more than one spirit, but it was sort of like all of the dead. It was like animals, it was humans, it was nature. It was like it was really kind of a cool way. It was like a culmination of like an amalgam of multiple things, which was really cool.
And it happened like relatively quickly. When we get to the that place, it's like my cat's having a sneeze attack. You okay? Anyway, I think that that was all. I was good with all of that. Lore I think is another strength. I think I really liked the cultural side of it. I loved the different angles of the shaman beliefs and practices and other religious practices. And I thought all of that was so well done. And I think that's part of why it's so disappointing is because I think that if you just trimmed out some of the other stuff, I think this could have been a much stronger film overall.
Yeah, for sure. But, definitely let us know in the comments. So, if this was something that you really loved.
Yeah, I'd love to know why. Always. Yeah. Happy to hear people's opinions on it. And I don't say that sarcastically. I genuinely mean it. If you loved the medium, what were some things that you really liked about it? Maybe we're just being too hard. Maybe we were just like, ugh, I don't know.
Sometimes, you force yourself to watch a movie. I don't think this was the case, right? I don't necessarily. But, it was like sometimes when you force yourself to watch a movie, you're like, your mood going in is just sort of always your mood going out.
Yep.
That's why I was like, I always have to make sure I'm like calm and sort of like collected.
I felt that way about something we just talked about, not that like recently. There was something else where I was like, I'm gonna have to rewatch it because I don't really remember it. I'm not happy about it. It might have been. I don't think it was this one. It was another one. Either way, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, but still glad I checked it out. That's the thing is like, being movie lovers, right? I'm like, hey man, I love every movie, but
yeah. Is it this one's on Shudder?
This was on Shudder, yeah.
Yes, because I was complaining the whole time about the app. Yeah, it's on Shudder. It closed me out and started me over like 4 times. And not on my phone because Shudder doesn't work on the phone. Or my TV apparently. And yeah, so if you're interested in checking this out, it is on Shudder. If you liked this film, if you loved this film, what were the things that what were the things that worked for you? Or do you agree with us? Were there things that you hated, like things that bothered you? Always want to know in the comments. And yeah, I think that's going to wrap up this episode of Found Footage Fridays. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. We hope you have a good weekend, a great week coming up, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.